The last magicians of rational thought. Now, a human being is a multi-dimensional entity. Multidimensional meaning it cannot be short-circuited by a singular model or manifold models that try to bottleneck it into that model. What happens if a human being is quantifiably or qualitatively pushed into some paradigmatic model of what a human being is? Then, if it behaves like the model foreseen for that person to behave, it cuts out the multidimensionality away from the human being, and he becomes forced into the prison of that paradigm, model, or multiple models trying to modify his behaviors. Now, if a person will be pushed into that iron prison of a model, he may be easily controlled in a quantifiable and qualitative manner by whomsoever understands how the cybernetic model works and thus push the model down the throat of that particular person or society in order to force and predict results of behavioral cognitive aspects. Now, 100 years ago, before the onset of the methodology of modern cognitive sciences, cybernetics, all the hive mind ideas, a human being could experience much more, much deeper, much greater things than we experience nowadays, because the life didn't become yet a simulacra or set of simulacras. Now, everything I observe, for example, on Instagram, or I didn't use TikTok, but I'm aware of the phenomena, is creating hollowed shells, narcissistic, egomaniac hollow shells. Now, that's nothing new, but what's the point of it? If you create a shell, an algorithmic shell, and if you believe in that shell, and you are governed by this shell, that is an excellent gold mine for social engineering. Because from a multidimensional being, from a deep and great individual as you may be, you turn yourself into a shell that is a model or a set of algorithm models that is weaponized against societies so that you may be controlled by shells, because a narcissistic personality has no inner core, has no personality. It is sucking in the narrations and the images from the outside in order to build a front, how to communicate like an interface with society. Now, when the narcissism of societies is conditioned by creating those shallow front lines and making people believe that those shallow virtualities are the faces, the true nature and the inner guts and core to the downright abysses of their souls or diamonds and spirit, then there is a problem. Not a problem for those particular people, but for them being subject to a model, a very simple model that is optimized to manage those masses and the shallow facades that are very easy to control. Now, what made me think about the raw human experience, true human experience, deep human experience versus this shallow processing that is in the control zone ever was. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and even nowadays, if people of great honesty and an inner experience that is wide like an ocean meet and start to converse, there is something that is neither quantifiable nor qualitatively analyzable by psychology, by cognitive sciences, by neurobiology, by any form of modern science that is trying to analyze human behavior en masse. It has something of a transcendent quality of poetry or the original meaning of philosophy, as in the love of wisdom, love of deified qualities. This is where the God, the ontological status, meets the mortal human animal. And yes, we can measure the behaviors, mass behaviors of cognitions, affect the biochemistry of the whole breeding market by tools of modern science. We may. But when this particular mortal animal that is a human being meets with divinities, it escapes those definitions. Because then those instruments try to categorize that mortal human being by the standards that are limited by their own scientific categories. They don't grasp the divine, the divinities, the ontologies of Platonic realities. They don't. So they try to backwire them into what they understand. Now, to a person who understands the or felt the pure powers, the Platonic forces as entities, deified qualities streaming through his mind and body and soul and the gods of the cognitive, affective, biochemical conditioning, blah, 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 he knows that it's separate and it stands like a monolith above everywhere. So, whenever I was talking with my loved girl in the past and we used to converse for 5, 6, 7 hours, there was this notion of raw beauty imbued with divine qualities, even hellish qualities. If you would hire a team of anthropologists, psychologists, psychiatrists, a team of cognitive scientists, neurowarfare specialists, grand narrative institutes, whatsoever, and you'd analyze what we were about, you'd get so many reports and so many books trying to analyze every single behavioral aspect and cognitive and affective aspect, and they would sit there and analyze it brainlessly while lacking the information about the component of eros, philia, and agape, that divine component that we merely reflected through our conversation. And herein lies the grand trick, that people that model themselves into that shallow existence are incapable of reaching for the divine qualities, are in fact already the prisoners of the models that the scientific communities, that the intel communities, that the AI designed for them. They're easily analyzable. They still have a potential of becoming humans by meeting the divine, the gods, and their mortal experience and knowledge and erudition halfway, but they no longer care. They are fine as shallow shells. And those narcissistic shells are easily exploitable. That is where the world ends. Not with a bang, but with a whimper of the dying true man, true woman. Thank you.